I'm Harrison Graham, and it is time for my annual Bears Now Big Board. This year, I'm going up to 50 prospects. At least for now, I'll try to ramp it up as we get closer to the draft. My top 20 prospects, Bears angled for the 2025 NFL Draft. And when I mean Bears angled, these are some of the parameters, the important notes, not including quarterbacks, because they're not drafting a quarterback. They already have 3 quarterbacks on the roster that will likely be on the 53. Obviously, Kaleb Williams, Tyson Bagent, and then Case Keenum as the vet. I don't think there's any scenario where even in like the 7th round they would take a quarterback. It's Bears focus rankings, and what I mean by that is not only no quarterbacks, no reason to have Cam Ward take up one of my top 50 spots. But, if it's close between 2 guys, I might have a guy higher based on positional need for the Bears. Like if it's a DB versus an offensive tackle, and I think it's close, I'll probably lean offensive tackle, for example. So kind of combination of best player available and needs when it comes to the Bears. So my Bears Now top 50 prospects, my big board is coming up here on today's show. And listen, you got to be there. You got to show up on draft night, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. If you're joining us live for our Bears Now draft coverage, all 7 rounds, hit that like button. I want to know that you're there. I want to know that you're there. I want to know that you're there, Lacora. I know you're watching. Hit that like button if you're going to join us on draft night. Okay, rapid fire for the most part, but we'll spend some time on some of these guys. Abdul Carter, look, there's no chance he gets to 10, but, if he slid a little bit and some trade became available, I think for the Bears, he's my number 1 player in this draft. Overall, I would lean Travis Hunter, who I have number 2, but I do think edge is just a significantly bigger need than corner or wide receiver. So in some world where both Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter were available, I would lean Carter for the Bears, but love both these guys. I think they are clearly the 2 best players in this draft. And then I think the next guy is Mason Graham. It's really close between him and the next couple of prospects like Ashton Jeanty, but with Mason Graham, I just think the value of having that interior disruptor is so huge in today's NFL. And that's why I have Graham over Jeanty slightly. Both these positions are deep in this draft, so you could really argue one over the other, but I think Mason Graham is the most complete defensive tackle in this draft. He can be disruptive as a pass rusher. He's an excellent run stopper. He's one of the 3 or 4 best just pure run stoppers in this draft. Top 2 or 3 pass rusher as well. Like, there's probably a couple guys who are better pass rushers on the interior, but they're not as good as run stoppers, and vice versa. I think he's the most complete guy at defensive tackle, so I've got him at number 3. And then with Jeanty, he's just such a complete player. Contact balance, vision, patience, burst. He can run between the tackles outside. Excellent pass catcher. He had over 500 yards in 2023 as a receiving back. You guys know how I feel about him. I've got him as the 4th best player in this draft and for the Bears specifically as well. Okay, I do have Will Campbell next. Now, of course, there's caveats. I think, and again, this is just my list, so I'll go by my evaluation. I do think he can play left tackle in the NFL. I think he's the exception to the rule because he's got excellent footwork. He's got excellent athleticism. Will he run into trouble occasionally with super long and powerful defensive ends that have super long arms? Probably. Like, he will run into problems every once in a while, but I don't think it'll be frequent enough to not play him at left tackle. And again, even if the worst happens, I think he could be an all-pro guard. I think he could be a great center. He was setting protections at LSU as a left tackle, and everyone that talks about him raves about his character, raves about how he is as a teammate, and how he'll galvanize that offensive line room. You add that to already some veteran voices like Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, and Jonah Jackson, Darnell Wright emerging as a good right tackle in this league. I mean, if he can play left tackle, and I think he can, you could all of a sudden look up and be like, is this one of the better O-lines in the NFL? I think it could happen. Okay, Tyler Warren at number 6. He's been a fast riser for me. I'm a huge fan of his game. There's conflicting opinions about him. Some people even like Colston Loveland better, but I think for the Bears, specifically for the Bears, I've got him pretty high because to me, he is the definition of creativity. And Ben Johnson is the definition of a creative play caller. How can I call different creative plays, put players in position to do different things? Ben Johnson, Tyler Warren feels like a perfect marriage. He's a guy I've mocked to the Bears at 10 several times. If he's sitting there, you pair him with Cole Kmet at that tight end position. You have Kmet be more of a traditional tight end and Warren do different things, split him out wide, throw jump balls to him, bring him in motion, line him up in the backfield, have a wildcat package, just generate touches for him. I absolutely love it. Okay, Armin Mimbu at number 7. I've got him just slightly lower because he's never played left tackle in the NFL. I think he can, but I'm not convinced NFL teams do. Recent reporting from Brad Biggs and national guys have that teams think he's a right tackle or a guard. Bears don't really need that. Still love the player. Still would take him at 10, but I got him a little lower. Number 7 overall player on my Bears Now big board. Okay, Mike Green at 8, the edge out of Marshall. I'm really high on him. I'm probably higher on him than most, but after Abdul Carter, I think he's the second best edge. We've talked about his polish as a pass rusher. He's got a great spin move, a cross chop, can set the edge with power and physicality. He's technically sound. My only questions for me personally, are the off-the-field stuff, the sexual assault allegations. I don't have access to that information, what happened there. Obviously, the Bears have to do their own research. I think the Bears will have concerns with his arm length because Dennis Allen typically values super big and long athletes on the edge. He's not that, but to me, he overcomes that with his power and with his just polish as a pass rusher. Mykel Williams could be a guy the Bears like more. I've grown on Mykel Williams. I loved him early. I kind of faded off him. I didn't think he tested that well, but I did remember he had a nasty ankle sprain this past season, and he still fought through that and was fairly productive, especially compared to a Shamar Stewart type. So I'm okay if he's the Bears pick at 10. I like Mike Green more, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Bears were higher on Mykel Williams. I got him at number 9 on my Bears Now big board. Who would you rather have pick an edge for the Chicago Bears? Type MG for Mike Green, MW for Mykel Williams. I would prefer Mike Green because I just think he's a better football player. And to me, take the better player at a premium position. But Mykel Williams isn't even 21 years old yet. I can even acknowledge that his ceiling is probably taller. So, I wouldn't freak out over this one, but I would rather have Mike Green if the off-the-field stuff checks out. Okay, Kelvin Banks Jr. at 10. I don't love him, but I do think he's the third best offensive line prospect in this draft, especially for the Bears. Should have positional versatility. I do think he could come in and compete at left tackle. I don't love his feet. Sometimes he ends up on the ground. Mykel Williams kind of abused him, if I'm being honest. But, he's in that group of players. If the top guys are gone when the Bears are picking at 10 and they end up with Kelvin Banks, I'd be okay with it. Like it a lot more in a trade down scenario, though. Same with the Marion Hampton. If he's the pick at 10, I'm cool with it, depending on who's available. Would love it more in a trade down, but I do think he's a clear RB2 in this draft. Back-to-back 1,500-yard seasons, one with Drake May, one without. Good athlete, can play in multiple schemes. Really, really good player. Tetairoa McMillan, I think overall, I like him better as a prospect than a Mykel Williams, than a Marion Hampton in this draft. But for the Bears, receiver isn't as big of a need, so I'll ding him a few spots here. But love the player. I think he's a top 10 player in this draft overall. But for the Bears, he's a little bit lower for me. Okay, Derek Harmon. And I'll just throw Walter Nolan in here as well. They're really close. I'm higher on these guys than some people are, but they are both really good run stoppers, and you see the upside as pass rushers. Like, they are twitchy. They are guys who can really move at their size. Harmon's a little bigger than Nolan, and you don't hear the character red flags with Harmon. That's why I've got him a little bit higher. There's some question marks it would appear with Nolan. Does he fit in with teammates? There was reports of him, like leaving practice early and stuff like that. I don't think they're major red flags. Maybe it's just an immaturity thing, but if all things were equal, I would take Derek Harmon. I think they're both underrated in this draft. I think they're top 15 players, especially for the Bears. Like, again, 10's probably a tick early, but if they hit, again, those interior pass rushers, and they can both stop the run, teams love that in today's NFL, and I think they're both really, really good at it. I got Josh Simmons at 15. If the injury wasn't there, he'd be a top 10 guy for me, but that is a concern. I think there's a chance, though, if you got him and he was cleared by training camp, he'd win the left tackle job. He was having a hell of a season for Ohio State before the knee injury. I don't have access to the medical information, so it's hard for me to put him in the top 10, but he's got huge potential. And I like Josh Connolly. I don't think his ceiling's probably as high as Josh Simmons, but doesn't come with the injury. Also, there's some whispers about Simmons as with attitude concerns as well. I've heard nothing about that at Josh Connolly. Great Senior Bowl. I think he's a plug-and-play left tackle. He could plug into that competition and, quite frankly, win it. If he somehow fell to 39, it'd be awesome. He'd also be a guy I would consider trading back into round 1-4. Okay, I got Jalen Walker at 17. I just, for the Bears specifically, I just don't know what to do with him. I'm not as high on Walker as the NFL is. Dane Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah both have him as their 5th best prospect. I don't see that, period. I definitely don't see it in a 4-3 scheme. Now, I don't want to overvalue the scheme. Like, to me, if a player is good enough, figure out how to use them. But I don't think he's an every down off-ball linebacker at 6'1", 243. I don't think he's good enough in coverage. And in a 4-3 specifically, and knowing what Dennis Allen likes, is Walker putting his hand in the dirt and rushing the passer? Like, that way, like, he's a guy who kind of hovered, quite frankly, on the inside some, but sometimes on the outside, and just blitzed. Like, Georgia just used him as a roamer. So does Dennis Allen have that role in his defense? He hasn't really historically, not in the front end, sometimes in the back end with guys like Tyrann Mathieu, but I don't know what to do with him. I know he's talented. I know he's a freak athlete. I know Georgia raved about his leadership, so I'll still have him in the top 20. I'll kind of lean on the NFL evals with him, but I can't put him in the top 10, especially for this team. Okay, Colson Loveland at 18. I like him. Again, I'm not as high on him as people in NFL circles are. Some people like him better than Tyler Warren. I don't, period, and I definitely don't for the Bears. But he's still a really good player. Like, if you told me the Bears traded down a few spots and got him, I certainly would be happy with that. He's kind of just your prototypical tight end, right? Like, I don't think he's a guy you're going to get super creative with, but can inline block, smooth route runner, solid but not great after the catch. I would just call him like smooth. Like, he's not, I don't think he's elite at anything, but he's pretty well-rounded. Okay, Jahad Campbell at 19. It's kind of a thin linebacker draft, and the Bears sneakily need one. If you told me they traded down and got a premium day 2 pick and took Jahad Campbell, it would surprise me, but I wouldn't hate it because he does have blitzing and pass rush ability as well. Now, he's probably better suited for a 3-4, but unlike Jalen Walker, he's a much better off-ball linebacker. Like, he can cover, he can play sideline to sideline, whereas Walker, to me, is more of just a downhill player. Campbell is not. I think he is more well-rounded. He can blitz as well, so I really, really like the player. Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. I think he's the best pure safety in this class. Not a great athlete, so that's why I ding him a little bit here, especially in a Dennis Allen scheme, but I think he could play both safety spots. He could play nickel if needed, willing tackler. At times, his long speed, he could get beat there over the top, but really smart and instinctive player. Bears Now is sponsored by Game Time. The official ticketing sponsor of this show is Game Time, and the NBA playoffs are here. And listen, whether you live in the Chicago area or somewhere else, if you want to go check out a playoff game this postseason, go do so and get the best prices available with Game Time. NHL playoffs as well. Obviously, you got the Cubs, you got the White Sox underway, your favorite sporting teams. Go check them out in person. And by the way, you can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. Game Time is going to make it easier and faster for you to get those tickets, even for those hard-to-get playoff seats. Prices on Game Time will actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. Often you can find tickets at a reduced price on the day of the event, even just hours or minutes before it starts. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets and tickets to all sporting events and other events as well. Download the Game Time app today. Use code CHATSPORTS to get $20 off your first purchase only. That is code CHATSPORTS for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, we'll speed things up a little bit. Nick Eamon-Warry, kind of the opposite of Malachi Starks. Crazy athlete. Don't think his instincts are quite as good, but did have good ball production as well. I think he can also play both safety spots. Kenneth Grant, the reason I'm a little lower on him than Nolan or Harmon, I think they're more complete players in terms of stopping the run and pass. Grant's a really good run stopper. He's flashed some as a pass rusher, but I don't think he's ever like a big-time sack guy there, but he's got some wiggle, and the Bears do need more run stoppers. Will Johnson, I've got him at number 23. I think overall in the draft, he'd be higher for me. I don't think he works in this system, though. They're going to run a lot of press man coverage. His long speed's just not good enough. He showed you that by not running the 40. I think you got to play him in zone coverages. In the Matt Eberflus defense, I think he'd be a much better fit, not with Dennis Allen. Jahdae Barron, it kind of similar in the sense of I think you have to play him in zone, and a lot of teams are going to have him as nickel only. I don't necessarily think that, but he does have shorter arms. He's going to struggle to play press man, so I think for this defense, he's probably a little lower. Honestly, if the Bears drafted him, I would give him a look at safety. I think he could be a pretty good free safety in the NFL. Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. I just love this guy. Selfless. That is the word I would describe. Earlier in his career, he let Marvin Harrison take the reins as the top wide receiver at Ohio State. Senior year, his time to shine, right? Well, this freshman phenom, Jeremiah Smith, comes in, emerges as the number one receiver. Egbuka never complained. He does the dirty work with the blocking. You look at the big runs from Judkins and Henderson this year, Egbuka almost always made a block when those sprung free. And we know Ben Johnson values that. No block, no rock. Good route runner, can play in the slot. I think you can put him on the outside as well. If he fell to 39, that would be a dream. Matthew Golden, I got him a little lower. I think his 40 time was kind of fool's gold. You watch him play. He plays fast, but, like, he's not a 4-2 guy. Like, that, he's just not. He's smooth. He can beat man coverage. Didn't block much, though, at Texas. And I don't know. I think in a Ben Johnson offense, if they're going to draft a receiver high, I think they want to get a guy that's played a lot of slot. Golden's done some of that, but I think he's more of an outside guy in the NFL. Gray Zabel, on my overall big board, I'd maybe have him a little bit higher, but he's interior only for me in the NFL. Bears don't really need that right now, so I got him at 27, but smart kid, can play tackle if you absolutely needed him to, but guard or center in the NFL. Some teams really going to like him. I just don't think it's going to be the Bears. James Pierce Jr., tape alone, probably a top 20 guy, but there are all kinds of rumors and reports about him, how they'd be at practice, he wouldn't be there, and all kinds of stuff. There was another report that Tennessee was quite frankly gone or happy when the season ended, and he wasn't around. But if you can kind of help him mature, he's a talent. There's no question about it. But I don't know if the Bears will consider him. Quinshon Judkins at 29, he's kind of emerged as my clear RB3 in this draft because I think, like Hampton, he's a true three-down player. He can run between the tackles. He can bounce outside. He can catch the football. His teammate TreVeyon Henderson's a better pass protector, but I think Judkins, for what the Bears want to add, if they are serious about creating a 1-2 punch with Swift, I think Judkins is the better option. I like the mentality he runs with. He's a top 30 player for me. Donovan Ezaraku, I like him a lot, but I do think he's more of a 3-4 scheme guy. But 16 sacks last year, production doesn't lie. Like, to me, he's kind of just like a worse Mike Green, little undersized, but he doesn't set the edges well in the run game. But if you're looking for a speed rusher, he's one of the best ones in this draft. Donovan Jackson, the offensive lineman at Ohio State, I've got him at 31. I think he's more of a guard, but you've seen guys like Dane Brugler think he's more of a tackle. So he's got that versatility. You could throw him into the competition over at left tackle with Braxton Jones and Karan Amagaji. If that doesn't work out, he could be just kind of your top backup this year. So I think he brings a lot to the table. All right, I'll put Shamar Stewart here. You guys know I don't love him. Underwear Olympics champion, tested out of his mind. If they traded down to the 20s and took him, I'd be fine with them. If they take him at 10, you will see a crash out unlike the likes of which you've ever seen. I mean, it's just, I just don't know if he's a good football player. Again, in this draft, I'll take a chance in the 20s. But at 10, they brought him in for a top 30, so he's someone they're looking at. I think it's way too rich. 1.5 sacks 3 years in a row. Like, finish plays, man. He just, too often, he can't get the guy to the ground. I don't know. I'm pretty sour on Shamar Stewart. Kaleb Johnson at 33, so not a huge gap between Judkins and Johnson. I think Judkins is just a little more well-rounded. I think he's a little more versatile. But in a zone scheme, which I think Ben Johnson will utilize a lot, he sees lane, hits lane. And once he gets north and south, he can really accelerate. Ignore the 40 time. He out in open space, he can accelerate and run away from defenders. He catches the ball well. He's got, his hips aren't the most fluid, which is why I'm a little less high on him compared to, like a Hampton or Judkins, but I still think he's firmly in play at 39 or 41. As is Ariante Ursary, a guy that I've been pounding the table for a while. It would not shock me if in 5 years we look back and it's like, how did this guy fall to the second round? 3-year starter at left tackle in the Big Ten at Minnesota, a team that runs a lot of pro-style concepts. He's a fluid athlete. His foot speed and technical work as an offensive tackle needs to improve a little bit, but he's got all the tools. 6'6", 335, tested well, can move, can anchor. I think he's got all the attributes you're looking for. Just needs some NFL coaching, and with Dan Rochar, he'd be able to get that. I got Tyler Booker at 35. Again, on an overall big board, he'd probably be a top 25-ish, 30 guy for me, but I don't think he can play in his own offense. And the Bears are going to run a decent amount of zone. He just can't move. In a gap scheme, love him. Love his mentality. 11-inch hands. Once he gets his hands on you, he's not letting go. But, I just think they're going to run too much zone for him to excel in this offense. JT Tuimoloau, I'm higher on him than a lot of people in NFL circles are. I just think there's still untapped potential. Former number 1 overall recruit. We saw him put it all together in the playoff run. 6.5 sacks in 4 games there. Broke out in his senior season. Stuck it out at Ohio State. Easily could have gone pro last year. National champion. Excellent against the run. Still developing as a pass rusher, but has the tools to do it. Fits the measurables of Dennis Allen. I really like him. Luther Burden III, I just think at some point I got to put him in here, right? Like he's a versatile chess piece. He can play slot, outside. I think he could be a top 5 returner instantly in the NFL if you took him. I think he'd be a fun kind of creative piece for Ben Johnson in this offense if he was in that 39 or 41 chunk. Wouldn't hate the pick. Obviously, you got bigger needs, but I've got him at 37. All right, subscribe to us here at Bears Now because ESPN Plus is charging you $120 for their content. Not hating on ESPN. I like their content, but you do have to pay a pretty penny. We don't charge a dime here at Bears Now. Hit that sub button, turn on notifications for free and daily Bears content. Okay, Jaden Higgins at 38, the receiver out of Iowa State. Very different from Burden, more of a outside, big body possession receiver, but has some fluidity as well. I don't think there's like a massive difference between him and Tetairoa McMillan. Now, I think McMillan gives you more after the catch. I do think he's a little bit more fluid overall. But Higgins, if you're looking for a big body X receiver that can really play, he can do that. Now, is that a little redundant with Rome Odunze? I'm not sure, but I do really like the player. Darius Alexander, the only reason he's not higher is because of age. 25 years old, but good run stopper, can rush the passer as well as an interior guy. If the Bears took him in that 39-41 chunk, I would not complain. Tyleik Williams, a player that producer Cullen took at 39 in his latest mock draft. Excellent run stopper. I wish there was more there on tape as a pass rusher. Doesn't mean he can't develop that, but if Cullen's take is right that he's the best run-stopping DT in this draft, I can't really argue with it in the second round. I've got him at 40, so that's right in that chunk of where the Bears are picking. So, and I'll say this, based on what the Bears have, and it's the reason I do have him a little higher than I probably would on a normal big board, is because other than Andrew Billings, they don't really have a plus run defensive tackle. So he could be your long-term one tech if you take him. A guy that's grown for me in recent weeks is Carson Schweizinger. I think he's the second best off-ball backer in this draft after Jahad Campbell, really fluid athlete. I think he could be a 3-down guy. He'd probably be your Sam linebacker as a rookie, but, if you let TJ Edwards walk, he could be your Will next year. If you cut Tremaine Edmonds, he could be your Mike. I think he's versatile enough. You could use him as a blitzer. He could play on special teams as a rookie, so I've got him at 41. Xavier Watts, I think he's a guy I'm higher on than the NFL is. Not great long speed. I think he ran a 4.56, so you'd love him to be faster, but instincts are off the charts, man. 13 picks the last 2 years for Notre Dame. He's just a tremendous player, and don't overthink the 40 with safeties if the instincts are there. Like Kyle Hamilton ran a 4.7. Now, I'm not saying he's Kyle Hamilton. I'm just saying the guy's a really instinctive football player. If it was a corner at that speed, okay, I'd be hesitant, but at safety, I think he's fast enough, and just a ball player, man. He could play both safety spots too. Nick Scorton, the edge out of Texas A&M. I don't love the player, but the measurables check the Dennis Allen boxes, so I'll put him in my top 50 here. I'll say this. I'd rather have Scorton at 39 or 41 than Shamar Stewart, his teammate, at 10. Like, I think they're much closer together. I think Scorton's floor might actually be higher, although I will acknowledge Stewart's ceiling would be much higher if he hit. But long, athletic, better production in college, I've got him at 43. I do have TreVeyon Henderson in my top 50, and I've kind of tried to, voice this recently. I like TreVeyon Henderson. I do. He's probably the most juiced up back in space in this draft. Really good pass catcher. One thing he has over all the other top backs is he's really good in pass pro. I just don't think his vision's that good, and I don't think as a between the tackles runner, he's consistent enough. Now, maybe that can develop in the NFL, but to me, running back is kind of a field position. I don't think you, at 22 years old, have average to below average vision as a runner, and then in 3 years have elite vision. I think you either have that or you don't, and I don't think his is that good. If DeAndre Swift wasn't on this roster, I'd be like, yeah, let's do it. With him, though, it's kind of redundant. That's why I'm higher on Judkins and Johnson. Pick a running back for the Bears out of these three. Do you want Quinshon Judkins, type QJ? Do you want Kaleb Johnson, type KJ? If you want TreVeyon Henderson, type TH. For the Bears specifically, that's how I would order it. In an overall draft, you could sell me on TreVeyon as the third best back in this draft. I would probably still have Quinshon higher, but just the vision. I don't know. I need better vision. Okay, TJ Sanders. I think he's being a little slept on in this draft. I think he's one of the better interior pass rushers now. Kind of average as a run stopper. That's why I got him a little lower here compared to a guy like Tyreek Williams. Like, I think Tyreek Williams is a better run stopper than TJ Sanders is a pass rusher. But if you're looking for a guy who can wiggle from the interior and have good quickness, Sanders is that guy. Okay, final five here. Mason Taylor, I think he has emerged as the third tight end in this draft. Brugler has him as a top 35 player. I got him at 46. He can block, he can catch, he can give you some yak. Not the best athlete, but fluid enough. If the Bears took him in the second or third round, I wouldn't be upset. Jonah Seva-Ainia out of Arizona. I love this guy. I know interior could be set for multiple years. That's why I've got him at 47 instead of like 30. I would probably have him around 30, 35 on just an overall big board because he just plays with nasty. He wants to be a guard, but he can play tackle if you need him to. He did both at Arizona, and he just is a tone setter in the run game. I just love the mindset he plays with. Landon Jackson at 48. Don't love the player, but he has good power. He's got good measurables. The production was solid at Arkansas. Not the most fluid athlete, but he is pretty explosive, even though like his like horizontal movement isn't the best. But he does check the Dennis Allen boxes. Tall, long, can push tackles back. He's pretty powerful. So I could see the Bears being interested in him in the second round. Okay, Jalen Noel, the wide receiver out of Iowa State. One of my favorite pure slot guys in the draft. Really smooth route runner, good speed as well. I'm just like imagining like Roma Dudze running a slant and Noel running a wheel off of it. I think he could beat a lot of slot corners in the NFL. I've got him at 49. And then I got Jack Sawyer at 50, 32-ish inch arms, not the longest guy, not the best athlete, but you just love what he brings to the table intangible-wise. Leader, captain, went back to Ohio State to win a national championship, was critical in that run, had the strip sack of Quinn Ewers with the season on the line against Texas in the semis. He just checks a lot of the, kind of leadership intangible boxes that we know Ryan Poles and company value. So I've got him at 50, even if he isn't the most premier athlete out there. All right, there you go. My Bears Now big board, my top 50 prospects. Sound off in the comments and let me know what you guys think about some of my rankings there. I'll try to expand it and kind of have my list available on draft night. Of course, Tom Downey, our draft analyst, will have his big board that we'll kind of use graphically, but I'll have my list as well that we can kind of bounce off one another throughout the draft.